everyone, and welcome to another episode of Little Give. I'm really excited for you to meet our guest today. She's up to so many different things. So go ahead, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, tell us what you're all about.
Hi, I'm Clare Bradley. I live just outside Manchester in the UK, and I am the anger management coach. So I help people to manage their emotions, to become more resilient, so that they are able to have better communications, better relationships, whether that's in a personal relationship or a working environment, just to put something extra in their lives.
So interesting. Okay, we haven't had an anger management coach on this show yet, so I'm excited to peel back the layers. So how did you get started becoming an anger management coach, and what made you want to do that in the first place?
So it was a kind of a natural progression, really. So my childhood dream was to be a police officer, and I was very, very fortunate that I was able to do that. And I joined the Lancashire Police at the age of 20. And I had an amazing career. I absolutely loved it. But unfortunately, I woke up one day and I had real significant pain in my arm, and I was getting pins and needles, etc., which ultimately ended my policing career, because 18 months later, I was medically retired due to chronic back pain. It eventually went into my back. And then time went on. I did lots of various different jobs until unfortunately, I ended up in a really horrible domestic abuse relationship, and ended up with just some bin bags, my son, who was 20 at the time, in my car driving back to my mum's. We were completely homeless. We had nowhere to go. I knocked on my mum's door, and the rest is history, really. Within 4 weeks, I'd got a job working for a domestic abuse charity, but working with perpetrators of domestic abuse, helping them to change their behaviour. Because obviously it needs to start there. Until we work with abusive people, there will always be those victims, the survivors, the harm towards women and children and men, of course. So I started to work. I was only working with men because that was the funding. And I learned something called NLP, neuro-linguistic processing, programming. Sorry, I got that wrong. And I decided to go and become trained up in that. And I did. I invested in myself. And I went back to work. I was doing even more in work, because now I was trained in this behavior change. And I decided to go for my goal. And that had always been to have my own business. I always wanted to work for myself. And I set up the anger management coach. And that literally took a very big leap in April of this year, and left the charity I was working for to be full-time as the anger management coach. And I absolutely love it. I get so much from it just by supporting people to, as it says there, supporting people on that path to change, to get from a place where they're in, where they're not living their best life, because that's what they tell me, to getting into a place where they can have better conversations, they can control their emotions and say what is happening for them, and they can also understand what is happening for people around them. And it's uplifting to see the change in people.
Absolutely. I'm also a domestic violence survivor, and I love how you took your pain and turned it into purpose, and that helped so many people. I honestly believe that the person that you're most qualified to help is the person that you used to be. And so you were able to take that pain and really help other people. And it's interesting how your story went from, being a police officer, how you peel back the layers of your story, and then how you happened to end up at this, domestic violence job, and then you end up the next thing, and then it like you said, you became uniquely qualified to do exactly what you do. So I'm assuming this is something that you really love. What is your favorite part of being an anger management coach?
I think my favorite part is when you see the light bulb moment going for somebody that you're working with, and whether that is my private clients that I'm coaching, or whether that is going into workshops in colleges. I'm currently in a local college doing communication for public services degree students, showing them how to talk to people and how to understand how people are communicating. So yeah, the best thing is when I see that light bulb and you can just see that it's suddenly all fit into place for them.
Hi, my name is Justin Clark, and I'm the president of the board of directors for Driving Single Parents, a 501c3 nonprofit serving the citizens of San Antonio and Bexar County, Texas. I'm here today to tell you a little bit about the great work that our organization is doing for the citizens of San Antonio. What you're about to see is just a few photos and videos of the way that we're changing lives for single parents in and around San Antonio, Texas. Our first giveaway took place in April of 2017, just one short month after the formation of our organization. John, a Bexar County resident, was the victim of a horrible drunk driver incident. He and his daughter survived the crash, and we were so proud to give our first car to this deserving family. Fast forward to 2020, a very difficult year for nonprofits. We were able to secure 4 vehicles for single parents in need. Our organization, including our board of directors, list of partners, and portfolio of people we've been able to help in San Antonio, continues to grow, and it's all thanks to donors and local community organizations that have helped us along the way. This giveaway took place in 2021 and shows that we continue to help single parents even after the struggles brought about by COVID-19. Because of limited funds and the overwhelming need, we at Driving Single Parents are incredibly selective with the people we help. Some are victims of domestic violence. Others had a spouse pass away tragically, or otherwise fell on hard times. These single parents show adversity in the face of challenge and aren't looking for a handout. We offer a hand up and help get them back in the driver's seat. Many of the single parents we help go on to graduate college, get promotions, get married, mentor others, and some have even been so touched by the gift we gave them that they have decided to join our board of directors to pay it forward and ensure the continued growth of our organization. If you would like to help our organization continue to grow and continue to help single parents in need in San Antonio, Texas, and Bexar County, Texas, we would really appreciate your support. Please visit us online at www.drivingsingleparents.org. Thank you.
So whenever you're trying to speak with someone about anger management, do you ever get those people who are really defensive?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In my previous job, I used to ring people up to do assessments with them. And I remember one person who was screaming down the phone at me. And now previously, I would have just put the phone down and thought, I'm not going to listen to that. Whereas I just let him speak. And he wasn't being abusive as such. He was just really angry. And he felt that all the professionals were against him. And so that anger came out, but it came out to me. And in some respects, I find myself that I was quite fortunate that it was me, because I let him have his say. And then we had a chat, and I just had listened to him. And in our chat, he said, you know what? No one's ever listened to me. And he went on to complete a 16-week behavior change program. And within months, he was then able to see his child and was being not supported, but there was a better relationship between him and the mum of the child, whereas previously at the start there wasn't. So he'd gone from this very, very angry person to somebody who had that light bulb moment and saw that he couldn't carry on like that.
So it sounds like you kind of disarmed him whenever, he was, so upset. You're just like, okay, I'm gonna let you speak. And then you can kind of disarm him and kind of like let him know you're kind of on your side. Mm-hmm. Is that something you think you learned from your being a police officer, or do you think it's something you learned from your domestic violence past, or both?
I think so, and I'm being honest about this. I think the police officer in me would have been, don't speak to me like that. And the go-to then is to arrest somebody. That's not helping them, not at all. How is helping someone who's angry and frustrated and restraining them, physically restraining them? Well, you're almost verbally restraining them as well. So, and I think it was going through domestic violence and then going through the NLP training taught me that person, that whether it was that man in front of me, whether it's the next person I speak to, they have been through some sort of trauma or there's something going on for them, and every single person deserves to have a voice and deserves to be heard. So that was, I think, it's just opened up my mind to more, really, and Police Officer Clare has expanded, I guess.
I love that. So whenever you're talking to somebody who is, that they're, an aggressive person perhaps, or they're angry or frustrated, how do you convince them to get help? Because I know sometimes people who are in that state of mind feel, like you said a moment ago, that the world's against them, that the professionals are against them. How do you disarm them in a way to let them know, like, no, I'm here to help you?
I think it's very tenderly, if that's even the right word. And it isn't just an instant response, because it takes time, and people will quite often say to me, so how can I get triggered all the time, Claire, how can I stop that? And I say to them, it isn't just an instant response. I can't just tell you how to stop, but I can show you and I can lead you to better behaviors. So I think how I convince people is to show them how life is currently working for them, and to convince them almost that if this is how life currently is, do you think realistically you need to change? And how would life be as and when you do change?
Great. Yes. So whenever you're, speaking with somebody and you're trying to disarm them and you're trying to get them to see that there's a better way, do you feel like sometimes you meet with resistance, or do you feel like pretty much right away you're able to get them to understand that, your life is not working very well right now with what's happening? Maybe we could try something different.
Yeah. No, there is quite often resistance. But people that genuinely want to change, are coming with that absolute desire, and there's a lot of emotion behind that, as opposed to resistance. But of course, people don't like to be told that you do need to change some things that they perhaps haven't even realized they're doing, or behaviors that they think are normal, and pointing that out to them, which isn't necessarily me pointing it out to them, it's coaching them and getting them to reflect. They suddenly see that themselves, and that can be quite hard for them to see how I've been behaving. And that, the slide that's up now, the change, it's like so valuable to get people from where they are to a much, much better place. But it does take time. It's like going on a diet. You can't just do it for one day and then be forever slim. It's a behavior change process.
I could not agree more. And it just takes a lot of work. And like you said, it's that matter of, taking the time to make sure that you're checking in with yourself all the time, because the last thing you want is to do all this work with somebody and then all of a sudden they kind of snap back to old behaviors. Have you seen that before?
Yes, unfortunately. And unfortunately, some people will try to convince you that they are behaving better. They will try and coerce you. And I think it's just a case of always being aware that sometimes people will just be trying to tell you that they're not behaving badly, when in hindsight, when you have people working with the victim, working with survivors, and you getting that feedback, you know exactly that, you know, what they're telling you isn't always the truth, which is very sad. Very sad.
Yes, very sad. So because you have this, work you do with anger management, and then you have this past where you've experienced that yourself and the domestic violence that you've been through, is there something a tip you could maybe give somebody who's maybe experiencing domestic violence themselves that maybe they could use to kind of disarm the person who's being angry with them?
First and foremost, I would say for them to make sure they are safe, and to make sure, and as hard as that is, to make sure that there is somebody who knows what is happening, that they can call upon. But in that moment, I guess, I would say a lot of time in conflict, people will kind of face up to one another. And at times, if they are facing up to someone who's being very aggressive, whether that's verbally or physically, I think you just need to take some time out and get away from that person, if at all possible. Whether that is a case of just going into a different room, going for a walk, going and having a bath, but physically getting out of that person's aura, for want of a better word, to ensure that their even their adrenaline comes down, because that's what we want. Is in that moment their adrenaline will be going mad, their amygdala in the brain will be doing the the fight or flight response. So for any victims, any survivors, try and get some time out, try and get away, even if it's a different room.
Hi, my name is Andrew Fraley, and I believe that sometimes we all need a little bit of help. If you're in the San Antonio community and you need some legal help, call me at 210-725-4658.
That's great advice. I really appreciate you giving that, because there's so many people out there I know that struggle with domestic violence, and also people who struggle with anger management. They want to not be angry, but it's hard to manage, especially if you don't have the tools and you don't have somebody like you who are able to help that person. So I'm grateful that you shared so much insight with us today on this. And I probably picked your brain a little bit more than I should have, but I just really feel like it's valuable and useful information.
Absolutely. And this is the thing as well with people who are angry. At times they are desperately trying to not be angry. They desperately want help, but they don't know how to communicate it. And this is the thing: anger is just an emotion, and it's often an emotion that piggybacks something else that is going on for that person, and that is how it comes out as anger, because they cannot. They don't know how to communicate it in another way. And on the screen, you can see there, so Control the Flame is my podcast. And in that, I invite literally everyday people to come in and talk about their emotional resilience, what they have been through in life. And we literally sit and chat like you and I are now. And sometimes I just let them talk, tell me what has happened. And it's wonderful to, and some of them have even said it's been really cathartic to just get that off my chest and to just talk. So yeah, in the podcast is quite new. It's only started this year. It was my thing to do this year, to do podcasting. So here I am, and I love it, really love it.
That's incredible. So tell us a bit about the podcast. What got you started in that, and why you wanted to do a podcast at all?
So I started it because of the business. I'd started the business this year, and I needed to push myself. I have undiagnosed ADHD, so I always procrastinate and put everything off. And so the new year was coming, and I literally went onto any online store, bought myself a microphone, and thought, well, I've bought it now, I've got to do it. And I started off with a couple of episodes where I literally read out some things about anger, and then thought that, well, that's never going to be any good. That's never going to get me anywhere. And so I started to invite just friends that I knew. One of my friends is a recovering alcoholic. One of my other friends is a domestic abuse survivor. So they came on. I have a friend who was trolled on National Trolling Day. And so they came on and we just talked. And I just love it to get the audience really to hear real stories. I've had people on who have been in prison in the UK, prison in the US. The everyday man and women don't hear these sort of stories. So I just want to put it out for people to kind of understand what is going on really in the world, what is going on outside of their four walls. I think that's important.
I think so too. And I also think highlighting the stuff that's not so perfect. Because I think a lot of times there's just like, all you see is the social media is everything is perfect all the time.
Absolutely.
And showing that, hey, there's so much more to life than being perfect. And even if it wasn't perfect at one point, you can get out of that and make it a little bit better every day. So I think your podcast is incredible. That's amazing.
Thank you. And you're so right. I've just been in yesterday we launched a book, and 30 of us and Mandy Nicholson, who's the main author, we launched our book yesterday. It became a #1 bestseller, Beyond the Ordinary, #1 bestseller on Amazon. And in that story, I tell of a time in my life where it was the worst time in my life. And because of a medical condition, I had a horrific gambling addiction, horrific. And I was in a very good job being a police officer, where you really couldn't be, gambling would have been frowned upon massively. Life wasn't good. I wasn't this perfect Claire. And I was hiding behind this person who turned up as Claire. And inside was Claire the gambling addict. It was awful. And I saw the book as an opportunity to get that off my chest, to get that out into the world. And up until then, the only people who ever knew about it were past partners. My son knew about it. So I'd written this chapter in a book, and then I thought, wow, this book's going to go out to the world. And I haven't even told my best friend that I've had a gambling addiction. So I've suddenly put that all over Facebook as well, because I just thought, do you know what? We're not perfect. I am never going to stand up and pretend to be. We have things happen in life. So let's just own them. Let's own them. Let's walk around and let's help other people to get through their hard times in life, because we've all been there.
Absolutely. And, there's probably somebody out there with the same kind of thing you're dealing with who's thinking, hey, maybe you can give them the courage to step out and tell their story. So just like with the domestic violence and thing we talked about earlier in anger management, and then also now with your story in this book, it's like that's all of those components can give somebody else the power to say, you know what, if she could do it, I could do it. Absolutely. So I'm really excited about this book and the fact that it became a #1. And how do you feel about that? And are you feeling super excited that it became a #1, or what are your thoughts?
Yesterday was such a long day, because we had a social impact event at a conference, and the book was being launched as well. So we were up at like 5:30 in the morning. We didn't get to bed till 11 o'clock at night, in amongst all of this. And then somebody said the book's got to #1, and I kind of like jumped for joy. And then literally within 5 minutes, I was sitting reading my story out to about 40 people. They were in tears. I was in tears. So my emotions have been all over the place today. I woke up and I've just felt drained all day. But it's amazing. And I'm not quite sure it's really hit me yet. But I know it's amazing.
Yes, it is really amazing. And I've actually written 4, and I'm about to release #5 books. Wow. And I, the moment that it actually hit me that I was a published author was when I actually got the physical copy and held it in my hand. Then it was like, wow, I did this. This is real. Wow. That's whenever it really hit me, because, of course you get that, accolades. Oh, you got, bestseller, you got this, you got that, all these things. And you see it, the graphic, and you see everything, you know what it's going to look like. But it really, for me, wasn't until I held that book in my hand that I really like snapped to it.
Yeah, and I think that's it, because it went out online yesterday, and we're actually coming to New York in November, and I'm going to come and bring the book with me, and I'm going to take snaps in all the different places in New York, just to try and promote the book a little bit more, really, and just to be a bit different. But yeah, I think it's going to be when it's in my hands that it'll finally hit me.
Ah, thank you so much for sharing all of your stories with us today. I know you have so much going on, and it's just so wonderful to me when people really, like I said in the beginning, was like take their pain, they turn into purpose to help others. And that's really what this show's all about. So speaking of helping others, I'm going to switch off to my little gift questions, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so the first one is, can you give the audience an example of a little thing that they can do in their community that might just be a little give on their end, but might make a big impact on the other side?
I think, and I am going to use my mum as my inspiration to answer this question. My mum is 81. She lives on her own. She has very little way of friends because of her age. Everyone's passed on. And so for me, it's, if you see an older person in your community, just communicate, say hello, ask them how their day is, because you don't know the last time somebody spoke to them. So that's for me.
Oh, that's a really good one. Yeah, that's a really, really good one. It doesn't take hardly any time or effort to just
No,
reach out to someone, give them a smile, a hello, how are you? Can I help you with your groceries to your car?
absolutely.
Just something, anything small. So I like that. Great
Yeah,
example. Can you give
thank
the
you.
audience an example of a time in your life where somebody did something little for you that might have just been a little give on their end, but might big impact on the other side?
Yes. So, and it was very recently. It's a really good friend of mine, Heather, and I like to tell the starfish story, and I told it probably a couple of times, either in meetings or in podcasts or whatever. And one day, just unexpectedly, I received a package through the post, and it was from her. She had sent me a very tiny little starfish brooch with a beautiful card just saying, "I'm so proud of you for what you're doing." And it was lovely. I didn't expect but it made me feel thought of, and that was lovely.
Ah, that's beautiful story. Yeah, just that feeling of like they heard me, they see
Absolutely.
me, they thought of me, took the time out of their life to go and pick this out for me, and then
Yeah.
send it to me to make that impact. Oh, I love that story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, what about nonprofits? Do you have any nonprofits that you're excited about?
Yeah. So in the UK, we have an organisation called Andy's Man Club, and it's for men, just men. It is, they have meetings throughout the UK, and they hold them on a Monday. That's it, Andy. It's Andy's Man Club. It's okay to talk. And they do amazing things for men's mental health. It was set up due to a man called Andy, who I think it was his mum and his brother-in-law who set it up. And unfortunately, Andy had committed suicide at quite a young age. So it's set up in his memory. And I think, having worked within the police force with men, working with domestic abuse perpetrators who were men, I have that close bond with men, I guess. I have done some training for Andy's Man Club. I did a workshop with them recently. So for me, yes, I'd like to shout them out.
I have never heard of this one before, and I always love when people bring new nonprofits to the show to kind of highlight them. And what a great thing! It's okay to talk. I mean, how simple is that? I mean, it's so simple, but at the same time, it's such a thing that we need to be saying. It's something that we need to be sharing to show people like it's okay to be yourself. Like when you talked about your domestic violence situation, when you talked about
Yeah.
your gambling addiction, like it's okay to share. It's okay to talk. It's okay to share your hardships because it's not always perfect all the time. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you. And you're absolutely right. I shared my gambling addiction at a networking recently, and 4 people at that networking event came to me and said, that they had had some experience, not necessarily themselves, but with partners or ex-partners who had been gambling addicts. So you never know who's in the room who's had similar experiences.
That's right. You never know who's in the room who needs to hear the message that you have to share. So keep
Absolutely.
sharing, because you never know who you're going to impact.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been so great to have you on today. Why don't you tell the audience where they can find you, find out more about you, get to know you more, and where can they buy that best-selling book?
So the best-selling book can be bought on Amazon, and you can reach me on at my website, theangermanagementcoach.co.uk.
Perfect. All right. And if anybody out there wanted to know more about that nonprofit, go to their website, find out more. And whether you can contribute $1 or $5, this money really, really helps continue the mission of these nonprofits. So please do go make a donation, find out more about Claire. And if there's any way that you want to get involved, she gave you all the ways to reach her. Thank you everyone for watching. And thank you so much for being on today. We're so grateful for you and the message that you've shared. And we really look forward to seeing everyone next week. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Little Give. If you would like to learn more about how I highlight ordinary people doing extraordinary things to help others, or maybe you'd like to be a guest, or maybe you know a nonprofit that you would like to see featured on a future episode of Little Give, you can find all the information on our website at littlegive.com. If you'd like to get involved with our kindness clip segment, please do send in those videos. Send them via email to cindy@littlegive.com. Or you can tag us on any social media under Cindy Whitteman or #LittleGive. If you'd like to know more about our podcast, you can also find us on all major streaming platforms under Little Give Podcast. Please do find our Facebook group under Little Give TV show and join it. We'd love to keep you up to date with future episodes. Thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait to highlight the next ordinary person doing extraordinary things to help others. See you next time.